Howdy, Joe here. It's a beautiful sunny morning here in Nashville, and I'm over in East Nashville, about to go check out my buddy Lij Shaw's studio, which is called Toy Box Studio. So what's really cool about this spot is it's technically a home studio, but it's all inside this shed, I think is what he calls it. So yeah, it's this fairly big two-story building. The inside's incredible. You walk in, you just want to make music. So if you're familiar with Lij, he runs recording studio Rockstars, which is a killer podcast and website. He interviewed me a while back, which is very cool. And there he is.
Hey man, I heard some voices out here. How's it going, everybody?
Say hi, Lij.
I'm Lij Shaw. Welcome to the Toy Box Studio. Really glad you're here.
A couple of things to know about Lij. If you haven't noticed the beard, it's amazing. Also, he's really good at sunglasses, and
Not so good at Rubik's Cube, actually.
sometimes I just walk around with him.
I think it was actually solved until I picked it up.
Okay.
Kind of goes for my mixes sometimes, too.
Well, cool. Why don't you show us around, sir? This is my second time here, so
By the way, I want to just start by telling you guys that I did my very best man bun that I could possibly do today. I felt like I needed to be well put
you
together.
are so
for you
East
guys.
Nashville right
I
now.
tried very hard.
Look at that. That's
There it
beautiful.
is.
That's amazing.
Only in East Nashville. So welcome to the Toy Box Studio. This is where we do our best to make records that hopefully are a whole lot of fun to listen to. I'll give you guys the super fast tour. Should I just jump right in?
Yeah, let's just do it.
All right, so this is the tour as I like to give it. Welcome to the Toy Box. This is a control room where we have the the illusion of control over what's going on in the recording session, where we do our best. We've got analog side of the room over here. MCI JH16 2-inch track. Got 16 track heads and 24 track heads that are swappable. You actually remove this entire head stack here, this whole assembly.
So cool.
Actually, that's not entirely true. This part stays, but the middle part comes off and out, and then you can switch from 16 tracks to 24 tracks. And if you are not familiar with tape, if you look here, this is actually tape just like you would have seen on a cassette tape, which you might also not be familiar with. But
Tell
the
it to
tape
me
is-
like I'm 5.
yeah, the tape is literally 2 inches wide, and it runs through here and runs across the heads and everything. The sound gets erased, and then it gets recorded, and then it comes over here, and then it can play back. So, ERP, E-R-P.
Good old ERP.
Good old ERP.
And if you've ever heard of people talking about splicing tape, here's where you do that.
Yes. Yeah, you just lay the tape across here, and then you have to take a razor blade and get it in that groove and go whoosh. And so you wonder sometimes, you're like, why are those cool angles there? Those are different tape speeds. At 30 inches per second, the fastest tape speed you do, you do the longest angle
Yeah, that
for the
sounds
fastest, then 15 ips, and then 7.5 if you're doing a really, really slow speed.
So how often are you tracking to tape?
Not as often as we used to be.
Okay.
Tape takes more time, takes more effort. Sounds awesome, but it's one of those things where if a client is really interested in the tape sound, if somebody really wants that tape for their record, then I'll add it. It costs a little more too. so
Sure.
I don't foist that on people unless they ask for it. And then we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So then on this
So
side
pretty.
we've got the non-analog world, Pro Tools, HD, with these 192s interfaces would sound great, and then some other varieties of stuff that you might be familiar with in any studio, home studio too. I mean, I've still got this M Audio 26 Firewire
Yes.
there, and then I just got this in the Studio 192
Oh, yeah.
from PreSonus, and this box is pretty fantastic. So I know that Joe here is an expert in Studio One. I am a beginner.
Oh, cool.
I have the beginner's mind,
Oh.
and I am learning. Oh, master. Studio One, and it's super cool.
Yeah, I'm
So,
digging it.
Been digging that. And then we come to the pièce de résistance here. This is the custom-built MCI console that Jeep Harned built for Criteria Studio C in Miami, where it lived all through the 1970s.
Wow.
So this is the very same console, and it's all discrete inside. There are no IC chips. This is all hand-wired, point-to-point. And it's the very same console that did a whole series of hit records while it was there in the 70s, including Hotel California for the Eagles, the Bee Gees' Staying Alive and Saturday Night Fever. We're an American Band for Grand Funk Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack to Grease, so Grease Lightning was done on this. John Travolta sang through this board. Well, it's possible that they sent the vocals up to New York or somewhere like that, but I think he actually sang through it. And Margaritaville was even recorded on this board.
Wow.
So a lot of really cool stuff. And it went to the Grammys twice for Record of the Year in the 70s. I think 77 and 78 or 78 and 79. And then we were really fortunate to go back to the Grammys with it in 2015 for Mike Ferris, Shine for All the People.
No way.
For mixing on the console.
That's so
And
cool.
then, you know, if you have a studio of your own, it's terribly important every chance you get to put your logo up in big letters on the screen so that everybody sees it when they walk in.
If you take nothing else away from today, this is it.
It's much easier than you think.
That's the whole purpose of that television.
So now here's the really scary part. So this all looks cool on the surface, but the thing that will make you grind your teeth at night and not sleep and lose, you know, pull your hair out, which I've done. That's why I have the man bun. It hides the hair that's been pulled out. Is down here, the patch bay.
Oh boy.
So this is a piece that is familiar in pro studios. It's been around in all studios for a long time, and it's disappearing on a certain level. Definitely, you're not going to find it as much in a home studio, but you might find it too. And what it is it's like a central hub for every piece of equipment that's in the control room. So the input to any piece of gear, if you just had the box sitting on a table, you just go in the back, plug an XLR into the back, plug another one into the output, and you just go hook it up like your guitar pedals on a pedal board. But in the studio, when you've got racks of gear, you can't get to the back of them all. So you actually run wires to the patch bay, and then that way you can use these little cables to patch in and out of every single piece of gear. So it looks far more daunting than it is. The hardest part of any patch bay is somebody, myself in this case, doing a terrible job of labeling everything, so you never really know where anything is when you go to patch it. But once you learn it, then it's easy, and then it's very quick, and it's the way to do stuff. So I highly recommend, you know, if you've got a home studio and you can get into the patch bay scene, you're going to thank yourself later. I think.
Cool.
Would you agree? Or will you curse yourself for broken
Both.
wires somewhere?
Both.
Both, yeah. First room you hit here is the kitchen that doubles as an ISO booth, so you're probably familiar with that. There is no space in your studio that doesn't deserve a microphone if you can put it in there.
That's
You even got a bathroom in there, sink, doubles as... It's really a kitchen sink that gets borrowed for the bathroom. It's not a bathroom sink that gets used for the kitchen. But of course we've got mic panels in here. So these are, you got 4 mic lines that will go to the patch bay, and then a headphone jack that comes out.
cool.
This cable is a permanently installed guitar cable that runs all the way back to another room in the studio.
Cool.
So if you can have pre-run cables through your studio, that really helps, you know.
Again.
And then you come on in here, and we're in the live room. So this is a big space. So a lot of times we'll do, the big rock drums in here and that sort of stuff. More often than not, we've got... Oh, I forgot to open the piano. I'll open it for you. More often than not, we've got drum set right here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll set up a bass player sitting right next to the drummer. Over here, we'll have a guitar player who might, have a pedal board laid out. And it's just cool to have everybody in the same room. Even if everybody's in headphones, they can all, you just get that sense of a band practice. And then, whoosh, dun, 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 dun.
Ugh.
The Steinway,
Ugh.
1920.
Seriously?
I'm not really a pianist, so I'm not the one to do it justice, but... There you go. I guess, promise we'll bring in somebody better next time. My brother's the real pianist in the house. And then this organ is a 1800s antique pump organ.
Wow.
And there is a little bit of a story to this. I'll share it, and you can edit it out if you need to.
Never.
So I was looking on the Traders Post one day, not the Traders Post, but the on Craigslist rather, and I saw somebody had posted antique organ for sale or trade for sterling silver, and I was like, sterling silver, huh? This is actually my dad when he was 10, but when my dad died, I was like, didn't I get like old silverware and china and stuff like that? And I went and looked, and sure enough, I still had, a felt thing wrapped up with some old silverware that was in a closet for 15 years.
Wow.
And I went and I called a buddy of mine. I was like, who I knew about money, or rather about silver coins and things. And I found out the price of silver. I went down to Target and got a little food scale, and then came home and kind of weighed some of the stuff out. And I was like, okay, all right, sounds good. Let's try it out. Went to the guy and offered him. I said, hey, here's what the silver is, and you want to do a trade? And he's like, cool, sounds good. So I ended up getting this organ and these little Tiffany lamp things and this nice bench that he had just done, and the whole kit and caboodle was for 4 spoons. So I was
amazing.
I think I'd much rather have an antique pump organ than 4 spoons.
That was a pretty good trade.
So pardon the man bun. Let's see what we can do over here.
That is fantastic.
And then
Oh, I love it.
come on in here and I'll show you guys this space too. So it's hard to video it, but you kind of get a sense. It is what I call the phone booth. Mm-hmm. In some studios today, but particularly in studios in the 1970s and stuff like that, you'd have a lot of dead rooms, really, really dead sounds. And I love recording guitar amps in here. Mm-hmm. Love recording drums. So if you ever have a chance to have a super, super dead space, especially if you have a smaller studio, home studio, and you just load it up. It can get boomy in a small room, but if you load it up with bass traps, so tons and tons of blankets in a corner, it'll really soak up more of that low end, and it's killer for doing drums. You just get really hyper compressed drum sounds in there.
It's very claustrophobic.
Yeah, but it's good for meditation.
Ooh. Well, there you go.
So yeah, and then we got the disco lights kicking up here. Here, I'll show you how we fire up the disco lights. So the disco ball up there is meant to be controlled by a DJ, pumping some bass. Mm-hmm. The best way for me to get bass is to close the door. So here, if you look up at the disco light. There we go. Oh, it's not spinning though. Oh well. Last time it was spinning.
I bet you could imagine drums in here rocking out in that thing.
Yeah, it's just cooking the whole time in the groove of the song.
That's so cool.
So and that's fun. And then my mother was a prolific oil painter, and so when she died, I brought down a truckload of paintings from her and just filled up the walls. And you guys will appreciate this. I thought, hey, maybe I can double this as sound treatment for the studio. So the backs of all these paintings are stuffed with 703 Owens Corning
Really?
sound insulation,
That's
which
brilliant.
may or may not technically do anything at all, but it seems to sound pretty good.
And it makes a good story.
It makes a good
Regardless.
story. So come on up, I'll show you guys
Okay.
upstairs too.
Every studio needs a spiral staircase.
Yes, this actually came all the way from Erie, Pennsylvania. Spiral Staircases of America. What's the name of the company?
There's the second thing to remember.
Yeah.
By the
There's
way.
a little bit of a funny story to the spiral staircase too. I had 2 choices when I came up with the idea. One was they would send it down in parts and we could just build it all on site, but it looked kind of like Legos gone together with screws. And the other one was tell them exactly what you need and they would weld it all as one big beautiful piece of artwork. So I went for the latter, and then it arrived and we had already started getting other stuff ready, and it turned out that it was too big to fit in the door of the studio. No. So the first thing we had to do was get a blade out and cut it into 3 parts and bring it in, and then I had to weld it back together. Wow. So watch out for that. Make sure you can fit it in the door.
Noted.
And then upstairs here is the lounge. It's a writing room. It's a rehearsal space. I've got this beautiful old vintage Shure Vocal Master for a vocal PA, which is just a lot of fun. It just sounds funky and cool.
That's cool.
And then more paintings. All the nudes went up here, so As long as you're good with that, go for it.
That's all good. It's art.
All right, so here's one more little detail you guys are really going to love. If you are familiar with a Mellotron, which is a keyboard that will play actual tape recordings of the sounds, they would actually go into the studio and record real string players, real horns, stuff like that. This is called the Optigon, and it is the, I guess you could say it's the consumer model of the Mellotron. So it actually uses optical soundtrack discs.
Wow.
To play the sounds.
That's amazing.
This one's called Movin'. Here, I'll show you what it does here. Slide that in ever so carefully. Pop that up. Oh, come on. There we go. And then if you go to the diminished chords, it all sounds like Scooby-Doo.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so this thing's really fun. It's great for studio tours.
Oh yeah.
It's a little challenging if you want to actually overdub with it because you got to tune everything just right to the record.
That's super cool though.
And then you got to have a children's toy piano. Definitely look for one of those. Got to have one of those around. And when you can, I think we're out of batteries again. But you got to find your old Casios, the SK1, the SK5.
Man.
This thing's super cool. You can actually sample using the mic here. You can sample stuff and then you can lay it out on the different sample pads.
That's great.
So you can play your own sounds back. And it's just these things just run off AA batteries, which is why they're always dead when you need it.
Of course.
But it does have a power adapter too. Need to get that going. We have the Hammond M101 organ up here, and that actually has a Leslie pedal
Oh, cool.
that runs down to the Leslie 122, I think is what we have downstairs. And so you can actually, so this has a big cable that will run down to the Leslie, and you can plug the organ into this, but you can plug guitar directly in. So you
cool.
can do, like Pink Floyd, you can do Leslie guitar stuff. Wow. You can also take stuff out of your mix in Pro Tools or out of the studio and run sounds. You could do background vocals and things like that through here, or mic up the piano and send it to the Leslie, which is a super cool sound.
Sounds super neat.
And then lastly but not leastly is the Symphonic Holiday by Lowry. I'm still trying to figure out how this thing works. There you go. It's got all kinds of cool sounds.
That is cool. Wow.
And that's it, man.
So cool. And as you can imagine, it's a pretty epically tall room.
It is. It's about 20-something feet from the floor, above the snare drum up to the top ceiling.
Wow.
So that was a design decision. If you notice, the live room is pretty narrow this way. It's not really a huge space, but I decided that by using the loft design as a benefit, it makes this whole room a whole lot bigger, but it still leaves you room for a control room, kitchen, bathroom, ISO booth. And so therefore you get a lot of stuff into a little space.
Yeah.
It's like a benefit to be able to figure out, if you're the one who loads the van when you go on tour, you probably know how to load it up with all the stuff. So that's both a skill set and a curse, because it's also the curse of the pack rat that makes you think that you've always got a place for something. And then one day you're just full. Hey guys, so one of the things that's really cool about having a studio, and especially being in Nashville, is the opportunity to have some really awesome interns in the studio. Here's our newest buddy. This is Mr. Sean DeLeon.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing it right?
De Leon.
De Leon.
Oops, Sean De Leon.
He's got
People
the
say it
coolest,
like that.
coolest
sometimes,
name
too.
in studios.
That
So
was super.
anyway, thanks so much for coming and hanging out at the Toy Box. It's great to meet you. Come say hi.
Oh, by the way, where can people find you?
Oh yeah. So if you want to find us, you can go to thetoyboxstudio.com. I also have a podcast that's all about recording music in the studio called recordingstudiorockstars.com. You can find it there. And if your fingers don't want to type that much, you can type in rsrockstars.com.
That's a fancy trick.
Yeah.
I like that. Awesome. Well, Lidge, thanks so much. You are a rock star, sir.
My pleasure, dude. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a rock star.